Auditioning is not allowed as a deduction. Why would you do this for your job? This is ridiculous.
I mean, I did not do well in my accounting class.
This is the language of money, and I've learned how to speak it, and it's so important.
What's a good way to organize your invoices and receipts?
Oh gosh, these people don't know a lot about money management or invoicing. So sometimes we get offended if people call us a hobbyist.
Okay, so from now on, Australia-wide, there is no excuse.
If you're still confused, call me. So if you don't like numbers, if accounting and tax is not your thing, get rid of it.
Hi everyone, it's Joel G here and welcome to episode 5 of Maneuver. Our mission on the show is to facilitate meaningful conversations and spread useful information to help dancers maneuver through life and their career. Firstly, we would like to thank the City of Melbourne Council for bringing to life these first few episodes, a 5-part series where we delve into topics in mindset, business, health, and creativity. So if you think these episodes will benefit you, consider subscribing. Today's podcast is going to be super important to all of you performing artists out there. We're going to talk about setting up your business, taxes, and more. Today's guest is a chartered accountant and a registered tax agent at the Real Thiel. She also has a background as a dancer and a performer. In 2015, she co-founded Bay Dance, which is a dance school based in Adelaide and Melbourne, with co-director Les Callahan. They built an inclusive community focused on teaching adult dance and encouraging students to be empowered through movement regardless of body size, shape, gender, ability, or age. In 2019, she joined the Adelaide Cabaret Fringe Festival as an inaugural board member and as a producer. She has a Bachelor of Tourism and Event Management and a Bachelor of Commerce majoring in accounting, and after her study has worked at accounting and investment management companies. She has built a passion in using her skills in accounting, data analytics, analysis, and finance to assist her clients and colleagues in achieving their goals. She enjoys providing these services for artists and is considered to be like a personal trainer, but for small creative businesses. Let us welcome our awesome guest for today, Lauren Thiel.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Joel.
Thank you for being with us here. So you're in Adelaide right now?
I sure am. It is a sunny, beautiful day in Adelaide. Went for a little walk this morning to grab a coffee and enjoyed that. Nice. It's good to be here. Good to be safe and sound as well.
It's so good to have you here, and I'm sure our viewers will learn so much from you today. First, I'd like to know about your story. It's good to know that we are talking to guests in our podcast that understands the arts. Being involved in the dance and performing arts scene, and now with your profession being an accountant and a tax agent, how did that happen? Was there a correlation between the two, or are they two separate phases of your life?
Oh, goodness me. I often ask myself that when I wake up and get out my laptop. Like, how did this happen? I was going to be a famous actor, dancer. I guess I'll take you way back. So my dad is a trained accountant as well. Always worked in sort of business, quite big firms and quite senior up in those. And my mum is a visual artist who dedicated her, I suppose 20s, 30s, 40s or whatever to raising myself and my brother. So she was a house manager, as I like to say. So I suppose I grew up I like to say at the boardroom table, but at the same time, there's, random weird sculptures happening and there's life drawings happening in our house. And, so I've grown up literally genetically 50-50 artist and accountant. And then also in terms of, I suppose, my environment. And my parents joke, well, I think they're joking, but they said they put me into ballet lessons when I was 3 to teach me some discipline. And I guess either that worked or I just fell in love with it and the stage. So I've probably been doing stage performance in one way or another. Dancing's definitely my passion there, but I have, tried my hand at singing and music and acting as well. But yeah, I've definitely grown up in that space, loved that space. That's a passion, but recognized fairly quickly that I also have this other skill set. And so as I was growing up, like I feel like no one's like, yeah, I can't wait to grow up and be an accountant. How exciting. There is no kid at kindy saying they want to be an accountant. I wanted to be a fairy. So as I grew up though, and I was working actually performing as a burlesque dancer for Adelaide Fringe at the Rhino Room, I met all of these beautiful other performers, you know, and as an adult as well, you know, as an adult performer, and I was meeting other adults in my space and people who've been doing this full time, and it really inspired me, but showed me, oh gosh, these people don't know a lot about money management or invoicing or budgeting or tax, or I was like, oh, and it was stuff that I had just taken for granted because I grew up in a household where that was drilled into us. So I was finishing up my tourism and event management degree. I was running Bay Dance with my friend at the time. That has since changed path a little bit, but it's, you know, just we're still running an adult beginner dance company there. And I was studying tourism and event management. The last subject of that is accounting for business, which is kind of like, you know, basic accounting 101 in case you're going to run your own business or be involved in management. And I fell in love. I called my dad. I did it like as an intense course. And I called my dad halfway through crying. I was like, I hate this. I hate accounting. Nothing makes sense. Why would you do this for your job? This is ridiculous. And then by the end of the course, I called him back and was like, hey, can I stay at home for another 3 years, please? Because I've signed up for a double degree and I'm going to be an accountant. Who do we know? So it literally, I flipped it completely and changed my entire life path because I went, this is the language of money and I've learned how to speak it. And it's so important whether you've got it, you don't know what to do with it, you want to have it, you don't know where to get it, you know, whatever your situation is, accounting is so important. And my community, my artistic community, my friends were lost in this space and, you know, felt they were being maybe belittled or not understood by their accountants or whatever. And I went, I need to bridge this. You know, someone needs to be here. I can't believe no one is doing this. I'm going to create a business. And so there we go. And I registered the Real Thiel. The rest is history.
Yay. It's really good to hear those kind of stories, you know, especially like the duality of the arts and business. Like, I mean, I did not do well in my accounting class. I took like one subject of it, but I'm really interested and passionate. And I think I'm really good at the entrepreneurial side of things, you know, understanding business, understanding money, the knowledge of managing it, the what happens in your future, how to like invest and those kind of things, you know. So, and I think that's definitely a need in our community. If people just maybe spend a little bit more time on it, I think they can really go further in their careers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing I think I saw as well. As much as we like to sometimes as artists not think about it like a business, ultimately you are running a business. It's just whether you are purely focused on it commercially or not, right? So sometimes we get offended if people call us a hobbyist, but you know, that's a technical term for accountants and tax agents. So don't take offense. But I think what I saw with my people is that more often than not, they're running good business. You know, they actually know how to generate income. They're creative. They're entrepreneurial, like you said. They just need help with either they're good at it and they are too busy, they need someone to take it over, or they're not good at it and they need peace of mind, they need clarity, they need someone they can call and be like, help me, like I'm just confused about this. Yep. You know?
And that's why you are here in this world to help us. I'm Lauren.
Yes.
I'm Lauren.
I thought I was here to be a wonderful stage performer who gets to travel the world performing, but alas, I am here to be an accountant.
And I'm really glad to have met someone that's an accountant and a fairy at the same time. So
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I really want to take because you know, I want to help our viewers understand how to properly set up their dance business, especially here in Australia. So let's just assume that someone has very little knowledge
setting it up. And so I'll be asking really basic questions if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So from the beginning, when let's say someone decides, okay, right, I want to start a profession in dancing or a dance business of some sort, what are the first things they need to think about from a business setup point of view?
So I suppose I can use myself as an example as well. Like I started performing and treating it like a business because dad made me when I was 14 and a half, maybe 15. And I was doing those like Westfield dance gigs and promo gigs and things like that. Okay. So we started off with, from the newsagent, you can buy an invoice book. Yep. Nowadays, I don't really recommend that, and probably we can get a little bit more sophisticated. There are invoicing apps that you can get, or you could have just like a Word document template that you save. So one thing you need to have, which is probably step number one, is register an ABN. That stands for Australian Business Number. It's very simple, straightforward online. That said, I shouldn't be the judge of what is or is not simple. So if it's hard, get help. But relatively straightforward to register. You're registering you as a sole trader. So what that means is you are your business. You are one and the same legally. Whereas, for example, the Real Thiel is a separate company to me. My company can employ me. Whereas usually in the performing arts, you are your business. So your ABN is how everybody knows that you are a business, and you need to put that on all your invoices. When you are making money, I guess, and it depends on how you are structured, but again, usually as a performing artist, you would be sending an invoice. This is something that says, hello, thanks for booking me. Please pay me this money for this service. And so you could send it off beforehand, or you could send it after the fact. I like to send before because then you get paid. Or you might have like a deposit that's due and then you send a remaining balance or whatever. So once that is income, usually that's with sending an invoice. I like you to record also like a little summary as you go. So every time you issue an invoice, add it to the spreadsheet. And then every time someone actually pays you, you record that they paid you, because so often I get new clients and we go through all of this data and we find out, oh, you've got like $2,000 that people just forgot to pay you, and you forgot about because you assume everyone pays you and your bank's a mess. Which brings me to number two. So ABN, number one. Number two, separate bank account for your business. Now, again, it is just you. So some banks don't mind. You don't have to have like a business type account. You're just calling it whatever your business is, or dance income or whatever. Something that means you're separating your Uber Eats from your dance related income and expenses. And that also helps your accountant and you at the end of the year, because you know everything in that bank could be taxable or could be deductible. It narrows it down, right? We don't need to go through a year's worth of all your personal stuff. Also, you probably don't want your accountant looking at all your personal stuff, the things we see. So they would be my two key things. And then I guess the third part is like, maybe you get like a consult with an accountant, or get some of those template spreadsheets and template invoices set up.
So sole trader is what we're aiming for a personal business.
Yeah. If you are setting up like a full studio, or you were running like a dance company with other teachers and like hundreds of students, you might want to discuss with a professional, like an agent, a tax agent, about setting up a different entity. But if we're talking about you as the performer, more often than not, sole trader is a good place to start.
What about, I know a lot of performers who has like a little side project, for example, like a workshop series, for example, and use a different name, not their name. How would you, what was your tip for that?
That's fine. So my ABN is Lauren Thiel. It's also that dance drop. Once upon a time, it was also the Real Thiel. You can just register different business names against the same ABN. You can get multiple ABNs if you want to, but you don't have to. Yeah. So you can, it's very common in the arts that you'll have multiple income streams.
Great, thank you for that. So at the last bit, like you may also talk to an accountant before something. Do you think it's necessary to talk to one, or do you think you can do things on your own? for that setup state?
You can do things on your own. I'm sure you are more than capable, and you do not legally have to have an accountant. However, oftentimes I've seen people get quite stressed, quite overwhelmed, quite anxious, the fear that they're doing it wrong. You're probably doing it right, but if you're going to live all year, every year, stressed that you're doing it wrong, when a 1 hour consult where you get to ask all your questions and get that clarity done could fix that, do it. So accountants, usually we're not super cheap. We're accountants. We know how to price for our value. But if you find somebody, book an hour, that is a tax deduction anyway if it's related to your business, right? So we are a tax deduction. Go get some extra deductions with us. And bring to those meetings all your questions, examples of your stuff, the data you've got, be as organized as possible so that you've got a productive meeting. Send them stuff in advance if you like. So I think it's a good idea to have a tax accountant at least just for that initial consult, because it's a good way to see whether you guys are a good fit, which is important. You don't want to be swapping accountants every year. That's not really what we're about. It's a good idea to find someone who is, your person, and you want to be developing a long-term relationship with them, because you're going to get better value out of them over the long term because they know you, they know your business, they know your properties, they know your partner. We become a part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really believe in that. I think I listened to a lot of Robert Kiyosaki stuff, and he's always talks about building a small team, not even a team, a small team, compared to you yourself, a couple of your accountant, your lawyer, your bookkeeper, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a small bunch, and then it's super. It makes life easier.
100%. And can I just say, so in my life, I know when I like the look of something, right? But I am not a designer. So I outsource all my graphic design. I do, creative direction, and I review everything. Of course, it's my business. But I outsource the stuff I'm not good at. So if you don't like numbers, if accounting and tax is not your thing, get rid of it. Get someone else to do it. That is what the service industry is about, right? Let's share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think that I think some dancers, obviously not all of them, but some dancers are kind of have this fear about hiring a different kind of profession. They take class all the time. They spend money on you only spend a little bit of that to have an accountant or have maybe a business coach. Even an hour will do a lot,
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And I also really like what you said about being organized when you approach your accountant. If you want to get the most out of your appointment, the more organized you are, the better it'll be in the end.
I sort of take two views with that. I've got that you're not going to be scolded by me if you come in a mess. It happens, and often it happens because we're the arts. Most of my clients will come being I'm just overwhelmed, can you help me? Of course, have the meeting, we'll put you in the right direction, and maybe we have a follow-up meeting when you're feeling more organized. But if you are at a point where you are all right, I'm capable, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to get all my stuff together, then do that, because you will get more efficient value for money.
Yeah, amazing.
Both are valuable, I guess.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about, I'm going to show people a sheet right now. Let's talk about invoicing. Okay?
Yes.
It's really funny because whenever I bring up the fact that, school doesn't teach you anything about business, and the most common response is school never teaches us how to invoice.
Yes.
And it's,
I know it's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, and to learn invoicing, actually, it's really not that hard. It probably will take 5 to 10 minutes. There are some people who don't know how to invoice, and I'm quite shocked that there's actually a lot of people. It happens to me all the time when I hire someone to perform, for example, and I would ask for an invoice. Mm-hmm. They're I don't know how to do one. Yeah. Here we go. This is it, guys. We're gonna learn how to invoice. I'm gonna show you an example of invoice. If you can just give us some feedback on this example on what's missing here, if it's a good system or whatnot.
I love it. First of all, on the face of it, like tick, 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 looking very good. This is obviously being either made through an accounting software system, which is great, or a very nice, tidy, Word document template that gets copied for the new invoice, and then all the details are updated. So that's excellent. Both methods are fine. I don't like the spreadsheet versions of invoices. I do like to have the summary spreadsheet summarizing all of the invoices sent, like I said. So that would be my first thing, is good format is good. You want to send a PDF because it's a proper document and it's not meant to be edited later, right? So first thing, says tax invoice. Great, love it, good. It has to have your ABN on it. If it doesn't have an ABN, so if you're actually a performer as a hobbyist, you need to also send your invoice with what's called a statement by supplier form. You can get it from the ATO website. And if you've sent an invoice without an ABN and without that form attached, your buyer or the person paying you will need to actually withhold 47% of your pay as tax and pay it to the ATO for you, which nobody ever does. I know that, but that's technically what is meant to happen. So just so you know, put your ABN on it. Good, tick.
Sorry, let me just help with that. So if you have an ABN number on your tax invoice, you don't need to have the other.
Correct, because you're running a business.
Okay, perfect. Correct. Yeah, got it.
If you are a hobbyist, you need to tell the person that you're a hobbyist, and that's what that form says.
Got it.
And that way they have permission to not withhold pay and actually pay you your whole invoice.
Got it.
Cool. Okay, I like that there is a logo. Often as performers we won't have one, but if you do, pop it on there. You should have an address. If it's not your home address, it should be like, maybe you could have your like registered business address as your dance studio, or like a post office box somewhere or something like that. That's fine, but an address, contact information. So I do like that it has mobile and email. I think as long as you've got, 2 out of the 3, you should be fine. If you have a website or an agent or anything like that, you might want to note that. You don't have to if you are invoicing. Sometimes your agents can invoice on your behalf and then it's actually from them, so you don't need to worry about it. But they also take a cut, so pros and cons. Invoice number looks like a type of, well, it could be a date, it could just be a number. So with invoice numbers, they're meant to be consecutive, which means you have invoice number 100. Then the next invoice you send is 101, then 102, then 103. You don't send an invoice that says Lauren 001. Then you send one that says James 001. Then you send Lauren another one, Lauren 002. No. That's a very common thing that I see. It's not like it's illegal. It's just not good practice. Because the point should be, right, if you come back to your summary spreadsheet, or if you were to be audited or whatever, they're looking to see, is the income you've reported complete? Or have you just decided to miss some of your invoices and not tell them about them, right? And if you've got invoices that are in consecutive order, they know last year you finished at invoice number 99. Therefore, the first one that should be included this year is 100.
Okay. Cool.
And so forth, right? So they want to see all of them in order and they want to know which ones were paid and not paid. So by having an invoice that's about the date doesn't help with that. If it includes the name of the person, it's irrelevant. It's meant to be a number. So the easiest and best way is just you'd have invoice number, and then I usually start with something that's a bit higher than 1 so that it looks like you've been running your business for a while. So maybe you start with 1,000 and then you go 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, so on and so forth. Okay, 2, that's fine. You could include as much information as you like as long as it's to someone. That's no problem. Date of the invoice, yes. Where it's got like due in 7 days, I would note the exact due date as well. So I think it's sort of like saying terms are 7-day payment terms, but the due date is, what would that be? 10th of May. So that would be a recommendation. You could also say like deposit due on this day and then final payment due on this date. Those sorts of things are easy in like Word document type invoices. Some accounting software systems don't allow that level of specification. So up to you. Okay. Yes, usually as a performer, you will be charging for an actual performance, right? Or an attendance or something to that effect, or like teaching. So there would be like a date. You could have as much or as little as you want in the description. Usually I like to have sort of more rather than less, but keeping in mind this is going to the person who is paying you. So you don't want to be giving away too much, I guess. If you were charging on an hourly rate in this invoice, then I would include, 4 hours, 4 would be the unit, and then the hourly rate. So you actually probably need one extra column that says dollars per unit, and then it's unit multiplied by the rate equals the total amount for that row. That would be the only addition, because otherwise, like unit here should be 1, right? There should be something there. 1 unit of $300 equals $300. Subtotal at the moment is blank, but also you've just got a total. So I think you only need 1 total. The bit that's probably missing, as someone not registered for GST, you don't have to say it, but it's handy for people that might be hiring you that are registered for GST. If instead of saying subtotal, you have GST not applicable or GST not charged or something to that effect, just so it's really, really clear to that person, you're not registered for GST and you're not charging them GST. And then your total, which is perfect. Obviously check that those things add up, because that can be a little catch. So you want to make sure that your row adds up, right? So this dance teacher consultant unit times rate equals amount. And then down the page, maybe you're invoicing for a bunch of things. You would need to add up 300 plus, 100 plus whatever equals the actual total of that invoice. Okay, and then payment details. Yes, you have your information there. That's perfect. Reference, I would recommend you add the invoice number there, because at the moment, if you did a performance for these Wild at Heart people, 3 times that same week, they might pay you 1 big lump sum, or they might pay you 3 times that week and you don't know which invoice it matches up to. So keep an invoice reference in there. Sometimes they'll listen to you, sometimes they won't. And then, yes, a nice little thank you thing. The only thing I would say is you might want to consider like a terms and conditions. Like, what if they don't pay you by the due date? Do you charge interest? If they don't, will you call a debt collector? Probably not. But, if you want to, or if you've discussed with a lawyer, which might be a kind of like when you bigger business or, charging a lot more, those things become a lot more relevant and important. If you can sacrifice them not paying you once in a blue moon, then no problem. One more thing, I think the only other thing I want to note about invoices for you guys is invoices are different to statements. So if Wild at Hearts, right, have been sent 4 invoices and they haven't paid any of them, you don't send a 5th invoice including all of the previous invoice amounts. Each invoice is a separate bill that you're sending them, basically. A statement, however, says, "Dear Wild at Hearts, please pay your bills. We've sent you these 4 invoices." And you would have your reference. You'd have invoice 001 equals $300. Invoice 002 equals blah, blah, blah. So that a statement is like when they send you like a phone bill, right? And it says, you owe $200 for this one. But you could get a statement that says you've also not paid these 4 previous bills.
A separate sheet, document.
It's a different document. An invoice is not a statement. A statement is not an invoice. A statement's a reminder of how much you owe.
Wow, that's probably like the best invoice explanation I've ever had. So now, guys,
Yay!
No more excuse that nobody knows how to invoice, because you can just send this link to people. Like, that was it. Okay, so from now on, Australia-wide, there is no excuse.
Yes.
best possible way. Thank
If
you.
you're still confused, call me. Yeah.
That was so good. I mean, 'cause I made that invoice just from a Word document, and you know,
Yeah.
it was good, but so good to like have you like break it down. Like, whoo! I mean,
Well, even when I looked at it at first, I was like, oh yeah, that looks pretty good, tick, tick, tick. And then I was like, no, hold on. I reckon we could do this, 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 you know. You sort of go and look for improvements. And look, if I got that invoice, I'd be like, perfectly fine and pay it. Like there's no problem with it. But why be good when we can be better, right?
I really like the GST thing because with looking at someone's invoice and I don't know if they're GST registered, I'll have to message them again saying like, hey, is this including or excluding GST and all that? Cool.
We should also know if you are registered for GST, you have to have a GST like mini row that says how much GST is included in that total price. So keep that in mind. It is a bit more confusing when you have GST stuff.
Cool. Amazing. Okay, cool. So basically, so for the next question, basically money goes in two ways. Money in and expenses money out. With any that we do for others, for example, we're teaching a class or a paid gig, we send out an invoice and the money we receive from that becomes our income. And with any of our expenses, we then ask for or receive an invoice or a receipt for our records. And for a whole year, you know, it will start accumulating. So there's two questions next. Number one, what's a good way to organize your invoices and receipts? And number two, how long you have to keep a record of these?
Yes, money flows in two ways. I want to point out that if you've got like personal bank accounts and business bank accounts, you paying yourself as a sole trader is not an expense. And you putting money into your business account is not income. So this gets people because at the end of the year, if your business actually, let's say your business made $20,000, but you took out 15 for yourself, I'm still going to tax you on 20 grand, right? So if you happen to have 5 left, that is like irrelevant. So I just wanted to let you know because that's where people can get a bit stuck if they're not saving for tax. That's what we mean. Like you get taxed on business profit and you are not an expense of your own sole trader business. If you have a company, it's different. Okay, so with your invoices, your receipts, that kind of thing, it depends. So I like to think of it in like levels, right? Level 1, you have everything in paper. Maybe you have a paper invoice book or you've printed all your invoices or you've kept all your receipts and they're in a shoebox. This is level 1. This is like good on you. You've kept some stuff. It's not only reliant on your bank statement, but it's not terribly organized or terribly useful. We have no idea what your total spend is. We have no idea what your total income is. We have to get our calculator out and add it all up. It's a lot of work at the end of the year. For you, I don't do that. But better than nothing. Step 2, which is where most of my sort of small business clients would be, is we would provide you with like a template spreadsheet, like we've sort of been talking about. And as you create an invoice, let's say it's a Word doc, you've filled in your template, you've saved it as a PDF, sent it off. You'd save that same PDF in like a folder. It could be on your computer, or because I like the cloud and I like, you know, Google Drive or whatever, save it in a folder. So I get all of my clients, which I think you can do for yourself, whether or not you're my client, is you have a folder called tax, or if you're my client, it's called your name, so that I know whose stuff I'm looking at and I don't have 200 folders called tax shared with me. But if you have a folder called tax, and in that you have financial year 2019, financial year 2020, financial year 21, etc., right? At least everything's going to be in the right spot. So throughout the year, as you send off that invoice, you save the PDF in, right now it would be FY21. So you save it into the current year. Then at the end of the year, you know all your invoices are there. As you make purchases throughout the year, you would also take a photo of your receipt. You can throw the receipt away then. You have a photo of it. Don't lose your photos. So again, maybe it's like a weekly job if you do a lot of spending, or a monthly job, and you're doing a little cross check between the receipts that you've got photos of, your bank statement, any other notes you made, and you're making sure that everything you are putting into your little summary spreadsheet, you've got a receipt for. And you put that receipt into the Google Drive folder as well. So maybe under the tax folder, you've got FY21, and then under FY21, you've got invoices sent folder. They can all live in there. And then receipts for expenses folder, put them all in there. Done. Like, you've got all your supporting documents. If you get audited, you're ready to go. Just send them the folder. There you go, dear ATO, you're done. I like to have the summary spreadsheet, and I like to have it updated regularly, like every month. 2 key reasons. Well, 3 we've sort of realized. So 1 is your life is so much easier at the end of the year. Tax time, you're like, oh, I just have to update for June because I've already done all the rest of it. It's like 1 hour job, and then send it off to your accountant or do your tax return yourself. Reason number 2 is that if you need to figure out how much money you've made, or you want to know why you're not feeling like you make money, or how much to save for tax, or you're going into a meeting with your accountant and they want to see your numbers, you're ready to go. You are up to date. You can tell them, oh, I've got a meeting in December. I've got my numbers all sorted from July to November. Otherwise, you're going in with no info. We can't help you if we don't know anything, right? The third reason that we've realized through this, global pandemic of COVID is that A, the ATO like you to be up to date with all your lodgements, and 2, things like JobKeeper, JobSeeker, if you're on any other like Centrelink or government support, or you're going for grants, they want real numbers. They want to see what your numbers are. And rather than doing it when you're trying to write an application and you're under pressure and there's a deadline, have it done, have it already. You can actually use that information then. Data is only useful if it's, organized. So keep it organized. So what we just said, so keep all your invoices, keep all your receipts, put them into the cloud, and you need to keep these for 5 years. After that, you could delete them, but if it's in the cloud and it's not taking up that much room, just keep them. It doesn't really matter. But if you're moving house and you find some stuff from like 2010, feel free to throw it out. You don't need it anymore.
Okay, wow, crazy information. Wow.
Sorry.
That was amazing. Like, I also really like what you said about like data is only useful when it's organized. Obviously, yeah, it's great. Okay, so let's talk about accounting softwares, because there are some apps out there that help us. What would you recommend?
So I guess the short answer is you get what you pay for. So some of them are free, but they also allow you to make mistakes or like stuff it up a lot more easily, and they can be harder to fix. So one of the common ones is Wave, and the other one is Rounded. They do have limits. Like, they're good. They are a great place to start, but don't expect it to do everything for you. If you want it to do everything, like handle everything, be super accurate, be super complete, which is what I want as your accountant, and provide you sophisticated reports, then Xero is the best thing to do. Xero accounting software is my preference. There are others like QuickBooks, MyOb, that kind of thing. So they're like full-blown accounting software systems. The ones like Wave and Rounded are more like invoicing. You can track some of your expenses. They don't handle like your balance sheet so well, which is like all your accounts receivable, your payables, your any like loans you've made, amounts you've taken out of your business, bank balances, stuff like that can be a little bit iffy. And the way that they're built, what I mean when I say they let you make mistakes, sometimes they don't have what we call like an audit trail. So they don't say, oh, well, Joel went in on this day and deleted those 10 transactions out of the bank. It just lets you do it, right? So it's just like, I'm sure you don't mean to accidentally delete all of that stuff, but you did. And it's not an easy way for us to go back and see it or fix it. So as an accountant, that's important to me. Probably to you, you're like, whatever, I don't care, I just want to send my invoice. Then it's fine. So it's probably like If you have very good spreadsheets, you probably don't need the app. But if you hate spreadsheets and they overwhelm you and stress you out, the app is great. You will still need to export that stuff from the app as like a report or a PDF, or save it somehow and put it into your tax folder for that year. Because if you lose your phone, you cancel your subscription to that software, whatever, that's your responsibility. That's your data. If you don't have it for 5 years, you are stuffed when you get to an audit. So you have to keep in mind, like, what if I cancel this subscription next year because I'm not running my business anymore? Like, you have to still have it.
I really like that you said you recommend Xero, and you like using Xero, because I've seen that too. So people can just go on the website, search that up. It's pretty easy on their website. Do you know about the ATO app? I just saw that. Is that?
I take the stance of like, try some stuff out, see what works for you. The biggest thing is like, have it saved somewhere. I don't actually mind which app or spreadsheet or shoebox or software it's in. As long as you're keeping good records, you can use those records and you've got your supporting documents.
Yeah, absolutely.
A+.
Yeah, because I mean, when I started, I just used the shoebox app. It's,
Yeah.
It works.
There's so many out there.
Okay, cool. So let's now talk about just taxes in general. This might be an easy question, but what are the types of taxes to think about? Just the income tax, right? GST?
Well, yeah, it depends. So there's a lot of different taxes. The most common one everyone has to do is your income tax. That's your end of year big return that everybody knows about, income tax return. So that one is a tax on your income. Surprise. So basically there's like the marginal tax rates. If you make no money, you pay no tax. You make heaps of money, you pay more tax, basically. Then there's goods and services tax, which is GST. You have to be registered for this when your income from, say, a business, right, sole trader side, not your wages from salaries or employment, when your business side of things is going to have in the next 12 months, $75,000 or more in income, not profit. Profit is income minus expenses. Income is what we're talking about. So when your actual income gets to like sort of 65, 70, you could probably say it's going to be 75 next year, or going to plan, right? Register now. Don't register in a year, because otherwise they will want to take 10% of that income, because you should have been registered a year ago. So goods and services tax is a tax ultimately designed to tax the end consumer. So when you go to the shops and you buy, actually for dancers, shoes is probably not the best example. Let's say Uber Eats has GST in it, right? You as the end consumer of that are paying the GST on it, and you don't get a deduction for the GST you've paid, right? But if you are running a business, now let's use shoes as an example, right? Let's say we've got a pair of Block ballet slippers. If you are Block, the company, you are charging GST to the dancer. The dancer, if registered for GST, is paying GST out. So we'll get a deduction of that GST. And when they charge the dance studio or the theatre for their performance, they will be charging GST on income. So let's, for example, say you collected $100 for your performance, $100 of GST, but you paid out $20 for those shoes, $20 of GST. You owe the ATO $80 of GST. So it's actually completely separate to income tax, different return. You do 4 returns a year. That's a BAS, business activity statement. The only other ones that really would impact you guys potentially would be fringe benefits tax. That might be if you're running companies, have employees, that sort of thing. And if you have any like shares are a common example, capital gains tax, or if you're claiming a portion of your house, like if you had a dance studio in your garage and you were running classes out of that, then you might be subject to capital gains tax when you sell your house. And that's basically a tax on you making money out of an asset.
So let's talk about like tax deductions. What are they? A lot of dancers ask what things I can claim, for example.
So we've got a really nice little blog, which is on common deductions. It is for sort of all of our more broader creative clients, but the service-based industry, right? You guys aren't selling a product, you're selling an act performance, so it's a service, would be covered by this. So I'll just run through a couple of them. Paying your accountant, we can be a tax deduction, which is great. If you advertise for your services at all, like Facebook ads for yourself or your business, if you have an agent or pay commission or anything, that would be fine. Auditioning is not allowed as a deduction. So any cost of preparing for an audition is not deductible. Think of it like applying for a job, not deductible. Having the job and costs involved in keeping the job or doing the job, yes. Getting the job, no. Car expenses, yes, depending on what you do. So there's a couple different methods on that. I would read into it more. We have some blogs. But basically, if you're driving from your normal place of business, maybe it's your home, maybe it's your studio, to either another workplace, or if it's, you know, from your home to a studio or whatever, you could claim some of those kilometres. You can claim for like consumables, which might mean like strapping or depending on what you need, like if there's sort of like tools and equipment that you need. For dancers, so for every other person, clothing and footwear generally not deductible. For dancers, if you can show that it is like protective clothing, that's fine. If it is occupation specific, like no one else is walking around in ballet shoes, right? Therefore, deductible. If you're a ballet dancer, if you're a plumber, no, you can't claim for that. If you are buying or hiring costumes, yes. If it is requirement of your job to wear that certain thing, yes. So generally, like, I would just be cautious to not push that. Like, if you have, a lot of people like might work in a theatre as well and have to wear black, that doesn't count, right? But if you buy ballet tights or a specific costume to wear, yes. Okay. Laundry and cleaning expenses related to those as well. So there's like, you still have to substantiate it. You can't just put in a deduction with no like calculation behind it, but there is some help on the ATO website on how to calculate. It's basically like a little deduction, recognizing that you had to use your own washing machine for cleaning. If you get any coaching, like private coaching or go to group classes, professional development, there's a lot of specific rules around when you can claim and how much, etc. But generally speaking, if you incur this expense so that you can either improve or maintain a skill or like earn more money or get more work in an area you already work in, right? So if you're a ballet dancer and you go study a yoga teaching class, no. If you already perform as a ballet dancer and you do a special workshop with a guest speaker, yes. That makes sense?
If you're taking a class, like a regular class in a dance studio, is that a yes?
If you're a dancer, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I would think so. I would want to look at your specific income situation, but yeah, potentially. If you need, I think it would be lower for you guys, but like phone, internet, computers, that sort of thing, you could probably claim a small percentage. I, on the other hand, as an accountant, claim stacks of that because I live on my computer and my phone. You lucky ducks get to live on stage. So, what else we got? Donations, they're a really great one. We love to give. You might as well get something back for giving as well. Just make sure that you've got receipts and that the recipient, the person receiving your money, is what we call DGR status, a deductible gift recipient. So it'll say it at the bottom of the invoice from them, this is a tax deduction, or over $2 is tax deductible. That's what you're looking for. Then things like you can't claim for entertainment, and that includes going to see other shows, that includes going to movies, that includes going to the theatre or fringe shows or anything fun, basically. It also includes meetings like dinners and drinks. The only sort of exclusions to that would be if it's very specific for a role. So if you're going to be in Swan Lake and you go and see something that is quite the same, that would be fine. You could deduct for that. If you're just a dancer and you go see ballet every week, no, you can't claim that. So you have to be able to show that it's directly related to specific income in those situations. Or if you are traveling, you might be able to claim for some of that as well, like food-wise, I mean. If you're traveling, then meal cost is fine. Gym and fitness can only be deducted for if you are required to undertake like physical fitness as part of your role. So it has to be essential for your income producing activities. It's a grey area, that one, so I would be careful. Hair and makeup, sort of similar thing. I recommend, like as a performer myself, I have 2 makeup bags. One is for me personally, not deductible. One is all my stage makeup, 100% deductible. Otherwise, it gets really confusing. Do you ever wear that out of the house? Yes. So therefore, some of it's not deductible. Just make it easy. 2 bags, done. Home office will be less relevant for you guys unless you have like a studio in your house or something to that effect. Meals won't be really relevant for you unless you're traveling, like we talked about. Memberships though, memberships to like professional bodies or subscriptions to, dance and newsletters, things like that, that could be deductible. Music and multimedia, not deductible if you just want to have a vibe, but if it is something you've paid for so that you can do your work, then absolutely deduct for some of that. If you need to go and park near the theatre for your work that you are earning at that theatre, yes, deduct. If you get a parking fine, no deduction. We talked about tickets and shows, any other equipment, like if you're doing aerial work, that would be deductible. Travel, we've talked about as well. I think that's probably the large majority of things.
Yeah, that's huge. So huge.
Yeah.
So there's
lots.
You have a link, right? We can put a link on the show notes.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody, you can just like click on that link and it's all there. Do you also
Absolutely.
have a recommended template spreadsheet for your income? How does it look like? Or is it just kind of simple? Do you have a template around on a link somewhere?
We have a template for our clients. That's not something that we hand out to everybody, but as long as you're recording, sort of your like basically what's on your invoice actually. So like the date that you sent the invoice, what the invoice number is, who sent it to, how much it was, something so that this is always the question. In 5 years' time, if you get asked a question, what's this $300? You'll be like, oh, well, it was actually related to this invoice that paid me over here. You can see it in this bank account and it's in my summary.
Great. Okay, cool. Is there any other tips in organizing taxes that that you think could be helpful?
There's always lots of tips, but I feel like we've covered the main things. I think number one thing is having a separate bank account, because at the very least, you get to the end of the year, you can pull like an Excel spreadsheet of that bank account and you've got some idea about what's been going on, right?
Really?
I would like to see that you've actually got support for all your documents, because you're signing off that you do. So that's very important. And like I said, you can take photos, you can put them in the Google Drive. Like, they don't have to be attached to your tax return or anything. You just have to have them. So put them somewhere safe, organize them by year, and make sure that you have had that, maybe consult with an accountant, or you've got an accountant that you can call anytime you've got questions or something weird happens, like a pandemic, and you don't know what to do, then we are here to help you. But other than that, I think I would just encourage you guys to treat yourselves with, the respect of a business, to value and price yourselves appropriately, and to keep on top of this business admin. As much as you hate it, it actually can be really empowering and really encouraging to go, hey, I'm actually doing okay. I'm making a bit of money. Look at how much I've improved from last year. Or to be prepared for tax so that it is not such a stressful time. If you put money aside, when I send you a tax bill, it doesn't matter. You saved for it. And I would say have a bank account called tax, so that mentally when you look at it, you don't think that's your savings. That's just money you are putting aside for tax. Because mentally, I think we like to, I do it too. If I've got money sitting in a bank, I'm like, woohoo, I saved so much. And then June comes around, you're like, oh, they took my money. So if it's not really yours, maybe don't call it your bank.
So absolutely empowering if you have all this organized, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
What's the difference between, just a simple question, between an accountant and a bookkeeper?
Tasks, responsibilities, sometimes their qualification or like education level in this field and charge rate. So usually a bookkeeper is more affordable than an accountant. An accountant has, you know, the full breadth of knowledge of how all the bits and pieces fit together. A bookkeeper is meant to do the keeping of the books, like telling the book what has happened, when, and what was that. Whereas an accountant is looking at all sorts of other parts of that picture, and often is also doing tax side of things, which a bookkeeper might not do, probably won't do. Charge out rate can be a lot different. That's usually related to qualification level as well. So I think you can get like a bookkeeping, I don't know, it's a certificate, diploma, etc. from TAFE, etc. You can't be an accountant without having a degree. And usually a bunch of experience in another accounting firm as well. So there's a few different things, but it all comes down to what your need is as well and what your budget is too. So if you have an accountant, they should be able to do what a bookkeeper does for you. If you have a bookkeeper, they may only be able to do some of what an accountant would be able to do.
A question that we ask everybody on this show as a closing question, what's one thing that you'd like to encourage everyone in the world to do more of?
What they love. Do more of what you love. Figure out how to line up the things you like, the things you're good at, and the things that will bring you money. Because then it's not to say you won't work another day in your life, because that's a lie. You will work more than you have ever worked before, but you will love every day way more.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was inspiring. Is there a website where people can follow you or get your service?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are at www.therealthiel.com, and that is THIEL. And also similar on Instagram, which is the Real Thiel and then the number 1. And same on Facebook as well. So you can find us everywhere and you will see our beautiful, consistent branding. And you can reach out and we can chat and all that jazz.
I'm sure they will. And thank you so much for everything that you shared with us today. Even I'm like, damn, I've learned so much. Thank you so much for that, Lauren.
You are very welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
And we'll see you again, hopefully next time.
Wow, that was so good. Before we end though, your question of the day is, write down below what's something new that you've learned from today's show. I hope you gained a lot of information on how to set up your business for success. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Remember, spread joy through your movement, and I'll see you next time.